UFC 312 is coming up next weekend, and today, guys, we are going to be breaking down the entire card. We're going to be diving as deep into these fights as we could possibly get. We're going to be taking a look at betting odds and pretty well just talking about these fights as much as we possibly can with timestamps if you'd like to skip to any part of the video. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another video. If you are new here, my name is Kyle. I am your guy with many YouTube channels, and welcome back to another full card breakdown video, guys. Quick intro, kind of-ish quick intro. Let's get straight into the fights for today. Starting off with the first fight, a fight that actually, like on the early prelims, has a ton of hype around it right now. We have Aleksandre Topuria taking on Colby Thicknesse. Now, what's very interesting about this is the, I don't know if you want to call it prodigy. This is basically Ilia Topuria's guy taking on Aleksandre Volkanovski's guy. Of course, Aleksandre Topuria is Ilia Topuria's brother, making his UFC debut. And on the other side of the coin, we have Colby Thicknesse, who trains very closely with Aleksandre Volkanovski. So it's a really cool storyline right there. And both guys are coming out of very high-level gyms with very high-level fighters, and both of them are making their UFC debuts, which is going to be very fun to watch, okay? Now, for these two fighters, and typically I'm pretty well aware of the guys coming into the UFC, but for this, I actually had to go back and watch a couple fights for them. And so if you're looking to make a lot of bets, and I just always want to be honest on the channel with you guys, I know what I'm talking about when it comes to the vast majority of these fighters, but these fighters, I'm still a little bit green, and I need to get to know these ones just a little bit more, but the rest of the card I'm totally good on, okay? So, Aleksandre Topuria, from what I've seen, he kind of has that same style of Ilia Topuria. He's well-rounded, he's technical, he has nice power in his hands, he kind of emulates that same style. Unfortunately, the only issue is we don't have anything to work off of with his record. We'll need to see how he comes into the UFC because there's, again, nothing to work from there. Colby Thicknesse, on the other hand, like I said, trains closely with Aleksandre Volkanovski. He is a well-rounded fighter who's kind of decent everywhere. He can finish the fight on both the feet, on the ground, and he's a weird guy, okay? This one is a little bit of a weird guy because if you watch him move and you watch him strike, he doesn't necessarily look all that great, but sometimes he just finds the right shot, he finds the right submissions. Like, I have not necessarily been impressed with Colby Thicknesse from what we've seen so far, but like, in saying that, like, he's 7-0, he's looked good, but you got to question the opponents just like last time, right? This is a toughie. We don't know exactly where either of these guys lie. Oh, and did I mention that Colby Thicknesse took this fight on short notice? I don't remember if I mentioned that, but that is that is something very important to note. Of course, I need to see more, and we all need to see more from both of these fighters, okay? I am going to go with Topuria. I'm going to go with Aleksandre Topuria because a lot of people have been extremely hyped on this guy, and from what I have seen, which again isn't much, he does appear to just be the better fighter in general, but when you have guys training at the high-level gyms that they're training at, you got to watch out for him. I'm excited for this fight. I am not confident in my pick over here, but I am going to go with Aleksandre Topuria, and at the time of recording this video, well, at the time you're seeing it right after the next UFC card, but I'm recording it earlier in the week. There are no odds for this fight right now. I am going to pick Aleksandre Topuria to get the win, though. Let's continue on up the card, though, guys. We have Hyun Sun Park taking on Nyamjargal Tumendemberel, and those are names that will twist your tongue a little bit. Regardless, you have Hyun Sung Park, who is a come-forward grappler with really nice, really slick submissions. He barely strikes. He wants to come forward, and he wants to perform with his one game plan, and so far, he is 9-0 doing just that. He's been fairly dominant in some of his wins, and like, to be honest with you, while the game plan is to come in and grapple, he has found his moments on the feet as well, but he's taking on Nyamjargal Tumendemberel, who is probably the opposite fighter. He's a very dangerous fighter. He has really nice power, but not a ton of great technique behind his shots. He wants to come forward. He wants to swing. He wants to take your head off. So you have two guys that are going to want to walk forward and implement their own game plan, but those two game plans are very, very different, okay? Nyamjargal, the only other thing that I want to note about him is he does lack striking defense, and he is very hittable. This one is another one that I'm not necessarily too confident in. Both guys have come into the UFC. Nyamjargal Tumendemberel finally came to the UFC, ended up losing to Carlos Hernandez, but honestly, like, it was a decent fight. I think Carlos Hernandez is a good opponent to go up against. Hyun Sung Park has also come off to the road to the UFC, coming into the UFC, and gotten two pretty nice wins, but those wins aren't anything really to, like, ride home about. I need to see more from both guys, but I am going to go with the peace of mind. I am going to go with Hyun Sung Park to get the win here. I just think he's a little bit better. I think Nyamjargal comes in and wants to scrap a little bit too much. Although he is dangerous, he is capable of winning the fight. He only has one loss. I like Park to get the job done over here. Let's take a look at what Odds Jam has it at over here. And you can see that Hyun Sung Park is sitting at a -275 favorite right now. I think it's a little bit steep, but regardless, it's an okay fight, man. I'm not too sure what to think about that one, to be honest with you. Let's continue on up the card, guys. We have Kevin Jousset taking on Jonathan Micallef, excuse me. Kevin Jousset. I'm excited to see Kevin Jousset back because Kevin Jousset is coming off of a very, very fun fight against Brian Battle, man. That was really good. It was, again, you're going to see the recent loss on his record against Brian Battle, but I don't think he lost any stock here, to be honest. He was having a good performance. Both guys were tagging each other like crazy. It was just an incredible, incredible performance. No stock loss for Kevin Jousset, in my opinion, but he's taking on Jonathan Micallef, who is a grappler with good submissions. He has some decent hands behind his grappling technique, but Kevin Jousset, on the other hand, he's a striker, low pace, low volume. He takes his time. He can use takedowns when he gets close. His timing on his shots and takedowns are also very nice. The only thing that we've recently learned about Kevin Jousset, and that's with Brian Battle over here, is it seems like if someone can drag him into an insane war, he can't keep up. But again, I don't think that's anything like... I'm not ready to hard say that about Kevin Jousset because he had an incredible fight against Brian Battle. It's just something to take into consideration. If he's brought into those like really, really, really ridiculous deep waters like Brian Battle brought him into, perhaps then he won't be able to keep up, but I need to see that happen to him more than once to really say that about Kevin Jousset. It's just we finally seen him in like an incredible fight against Brian Battle, right? In this fight, though, striker versus grappler matchup, I think it's going to be clear where, and to be honest with you, I don't know if Jonathan's going to even have the upper hand in the grappling, but I believe there will be a difference in the striking for this matchup. I'm going to pick Kevin Jousset to get the job done. I think he's going to keep the pace how he wants it. I think he's going to be able to... I don't know if he's going to be able to slow the pace down because it's not like Jonathan comes forward with like an insane pressure. I just think that Kevin Jousset is a better fighter. He's taken on better competition. You can see the captain is just coming into the UFC after his Dana White's Contender Series win, which he looks like a promising fighter. I just don't think he's ready, and I think they're feeding him to an opponent that is up his level so far from what he has actually taken on. I'm going to pick Kevin Jousset. It's a fairly confident pick of mine. I'm kind of sitting at like 80-20, 90-10 for that one. I'm very confident in Kevin Jousset to get the job done over here. And you can see Kevin Jousset sitting at a minus 188 favorite, or excuse me, minus 210 for average odds over there. Odds Jam fixed their UI just a little bit. But regardless, I like Kevin Jousset in this matchup. I don't mind him at those odds. It kind of makes sense to me. I like it. My pick's going to be Kevin Jousset. Now, guys, let's continue on up the card to a very, very good fight, in my opinion. By the way, people have been like dogging on this card a little bit. While it's not necessarily worth paying for the pay-per-view, this card has some really, really low-key good bouts on it, and this is one of them. We have Cody Steele taking on Rongzhu. Cody Steele is a well-rounded fighter and high-level grappler with good cardio, heart, and pressure. He's taking on Rongzhu, who is a really, really clean striker who excels when he's at range. He's patient. He picks his shots well, he makes them count, and he has really, really nice striking defense as well. His leg and body kicks are also very, very powerful. They land flush. It's just a beautiful striking display to watch, okay? So, I have a little bit... I don't know what the odds are... Oh, and of course, like, I have my other tab open here at the time recording this video. The odds aren't up for this one, but regardless, okay? I want to point out Rongzhu because he was pretty hyped up. I mean, not like crazy hyped up just for a Chinese prospect coming into the UFC. He ended up taking on Chris Padilla, who is an underrated opponent in my opinion. In this fight, he was absolutely dominating. It wasn't like a perfect domination performance, but he was really winning the striking match that it was. He ended up getting caught with an elbow that just completely blew up his eye, and the fight got called. He was on his way to winning this fight. He just got unlucky with the way that his eye actually ended up blowing up over here. So I'm just wanted to point that out because in his record, he finally got into the UFC and then he ended up losing, but that was just a doctor's stoppage and he was performing very, very well. Cody, here's the thing though. Here's the thing. While I just gassed up Rongzhu a little bit, okay, I think he's a great striker and I think that he's a great fighter. I'm going to pick Cody Steele. I feel like that's a hot take and I don't have the odds right now. This one's a little bit more of a gut feeling. I think that he can come in, and I think that he can make it a dogfight. I think that he can pressure Rongzhu, and I think that he could get past that range that Rongzhu likes to keep at bay. I like Cody Steele in this matchup. He is a very dangerous guy. He's a very scrappy guy. I'm excited to see him perform, and I'm going to pick Cody Steele to get the job done. I wish I could see the odds for you right now, but I can't, and I would imagine that like they're gonna obviously be out by the time that you're watching this video, but man, I'm excited for this one. I'm going to pick Cody Steele. I feel like that's a hot take. I feel like that's an unpopular pick. Now, guys, let's keep going. Let's keep going up the card. We have Wang taking on Bruna, Brasil. I want to talk about Wang for a second, guys, because when she came onto the scene, I was like, I don't get what everybody's seeing. I mean, she's good, but she's not like this insane killer that everybody's seeing. But then she came into the UFC, finished the fights how she finished the fight. And then I was like, okay, you know what? Maybe you guys were right about Kong Wang. Maybe I was just, I don't want to say hater, but like maybe I was just like not seeing what everybody else was seeing over here. And then we had the performance against Gabriela Fernandez. So I'm sitting here a little bit smug. I was right. I knew that Kong Wang wasn't all that, and I let the entire internet convince me otherwise. Anyways, we have Kong Wang. She's a boxer and kickboxer with good combinations, good speed. She has good boxing in the clinch. She's very strong. She's taking on Bruna, Brasil. Has her nickname always been the special one? That's weird. Okay. Bruna Brasil, though, has been really putting it together recently, and I know she's 10-4, and I know that she has had mixed success coming to the UFC, but she also has taken on, like, some decent opponents in the division. The Molly McCann win is by far her best win so far, and I'm pretty hyped up on Bruna Brasil, man. Ever since we've been talking about the fighting nerd, she seemed to have really stepped her game up. She's a striker with good power for the division, great counters. Most of the time, she tries to get a finish in there, and she is not afraid to be creative. Her game is constantly evolving, and that's what we've been talking about these last few performances with Bruna Brasil. She's been adding a complete MMA game. She has complete takedowns. She has really nice attacks, transitions from the top position when she gets the takedowns. Like, she looks really, really good. Her fight IQ is also great and improving every time we see her. She will choose the best scenario to act. She's really patient. She's calm in the octagon. I am very high on Bruna Brasil right now, okay? Now, here's a question. Was this a fluke, Kong Wang, against Gabriela Fernandez? I personally don't believe so. I don't, and I think Gabriel Fernandez is also an underrated opponent. Like, it's not like you ended up losing to Molly McCann or something like that, right? Kong Wang, I think this will be a telling performance because Bruna Brasil is a very good opponent, and we'll see where Kong Wang fits in the division. I don't know if this is another hot take over here, guys, but I like that that Bruna Brasil is surrounding herself with an amazing gym. And I know that I don't know like if she's at Fighting Nerds full time or anything because I'm looking down here and you can see the Fighting Nerds are other instead of the primary gym. But regardless, there's been a lot of hype around her training with the Fighting Nerds. And those guys are absolutely killing it. And you could see a clear difference in Bruna Brasil once we ended up seeing her train over with those guys. I like that she is evolving every single time that we see her. I like the higher level opponents that she's taking on. I have just been more impressed with her in general. Kong Wang has never really made me sit back and go, wow, this girl's an animal. Bruna Brasil is kind of doing that. Like, if Bruna Brasil has a couple more performances at the rate that she beat Molly McCann at, then I'll be like, okay, this is somebody that I'm probably going to want to bet on in time. I'm going to pick Bruna Brasil. I'm not convinced of Kong Wang. You guys convinced me otherwise when she ended up winning her first fight in the UFC. I don't think she's all that. I'm picking Bruna Brasil. I think she's going to be better, and I think she's going to have more paths to victory. Let's take a look at Odds Gym over here, and you can see Kong Wang still sitting at a huge favorite over here. I swear to God, if Bruna Brasil loses after all of that, that's... I don't know, man. I mean, Kong Wang's very capable of winning. Like, Kong Wang looks like a really good fighter, but I am going to pick Bruna Brasil to get the job done in this matchup. All right, guys, let's move on up the card to arguably one of the best fights on the card. I'm very, very excited for this one. We have Jack Jenkins taking on Gabriel Santos. I don't know who's going to win this fight, man. I don't know. Anyways, we have Jack Jenkins. He's a well-rounded fighter who excels at Muay Thai. He has great cardio. He has great leg kicks. He has great heart. He has takedown defense and is pretty good. Like, in general, he's a really good sniper on the feet. He throws everywhere at his opponents, not just to the head. He does a great job at mixing his shots up. Jack Jenkins is becoming a very complete fighter in the real deal in the UFC. But speaking of the real deal, Gabriel Santos really seems to be that guy too, man. Like, this is a very, very high-level fight with two great prospects. Gabriel Santos is a heavy pressure, well-rounded fighter who has good power and good volume on the feet. It's not the most technical fighting. Sorry if you could just hear my wife's going out for a drive with her dad right now, and that's why you saw that jump cut, and I don't know if the horn just came up as the car was locking, but regardless, it's not the most technical fighting, but he does have decent fundamentals, excuse me. When he gets close to you, he likes to drag you to the ground. He does a good job doing so there. In the third round, he can fade a little bit, but not nearly always. It's just we've seen it, and it's a possibility when it comes to Gabriel Santos. Jack Jenkins, he has, since he came into the UFC, fought some really, really great opponents. You had the Don Shannis win. You had the Jamal Emmers win. You had Chepe Mariscal, which is an incredible fight, and he was having a great performance until the injury that happened there. The only problem is this Herbert Burns fight, okay? He won, and he looked pretty good, but I also got left feeling just a little bit less about Jack Jenkins with this fight because he allowed Burns to take him down, and at some points, like, I was literally worried that he was actually going to let this slip from his hands. Like, against Herbert Burns, that shouldn't be happening, and there were other times where he also engaged Burns on the ground when he clearly could have finished him on the feet at multiple points. His striking looked good, like, as usual. The calf kicks were good. I was left feeling a little bit less about Jack Jenkins after I saw that performance against Herbert Burns. But on the other side of the coin, Gabriel Santos, he hasn't nearly been perfect either. He had his first 2 UFC fights as losses against Lerone Murphy and David Onama, but the problem is, like, these are 2 really great opponents to lose to, and then the Lerone Murphy was a split decision loss, but he actually ended up putting it back together against Yeza. He had a great performance over here. I am just very high on both of these guys in general, and I think both of them definitely have bright futures ahead of them. This is about a 50-50 fight, in my opinion. I think this one can completely go different either way. I'm going to, like, just for the video, if you had a gun to my head and say pick a winner, I'm going to go with Gabriel Santos because of the takedown threat, and I don't like what I've seen from Jack Jenkins against Herbert Burns, but regardless, this is an incredible fight. Either guy can get the victory over here. This is definitely one that I personally will not be betting on at all. Let's take a look at Odds Gym over here. You can see that Gabriel Santos is sitting at a minus 201 average favorite over there. Those are good odds for Jack Jenkins, to be honest with you. Like, they're really good odds for Jack Jenkins, but I'm not going to touch that one myself. I think it's just a really good fight. I'm going to sit back and I'm going to enjoy that one. All right, guys, let's continue on up the card over to Tom Nolan versus Vyacheslav Borshev. This is going to be a very fun fight, in my opinion. A little bit closer, but you know what? My gut's kind of swinging towards Borshev. But regardless, let's talk about this, okay? Tom Nolan, he's a tall, heavy-pressure striker. He's accurate, and he's technical, but the only problem is with Tom Nolan is he can be hit. His chin is up in the air, Tom Aspinall style, and he can also be taken down. He has great calf kicks. He isn't afraid to be creative. He also has really good cardio. Vyacheslav Borshev, on the other hand, is also a very, very good kickboxer. He has over 200 kickboxing fights. He is a striker with fantastic kicks, specifically leg kicks. He's powerful. He has nicely timed shots. His heart and cardio are off the charts. But the problem is he can be taken down and he can be controlled if you're good enough to do that against him. But Tom Nolan's probably not going to want to implement that game plan. So this is probably going to be a striking match, okay? Tom Nolan, after coming in and getting knocked out by Nicholas Mata, he ended up getting 2 pretty nice wins, okay? But the opponents could obviously be better. Vyacheslav Borshev, on the other hand, 8-4. A lot of us were looking forward to the future of Vyacheslav Borshev, but he hasn't exactly lived up to it. He has taken on some really good fighters, I will say that, and he has looked impressive. The only problem is the Chase Hooper beatdown, right? But then he came back and got the James Lyon top decision. While the hype is gone for Vyacheslav Borshev, I think for this specific matchup, a fighter that's going to stay on the feet and a fighter that is going to probably want to duke it out with him, I think this is a matchup that Borshev actually can kind of just coast his way to victory. I don't think it'll be clear or anything. I think it'll be a little bit scrappy, but I actually do like Vyacheslav Borshev to get the win in this fight. He's fought better opponents. He is way more experienced than Tom Nolan, and I still don't like against a really good striker how Tom Nolan's chin is way up in the air. Regardless, though, I think it's going to be a good fight. I'm excited for this. My pick is going to be Vyacheslav Borshev. Let's take a look at the odds over here. The average odds for Vyacheslav Borshev are sitting at minus 148. I don't mind that. I think that's fair, and I think that he should be the favorite coming into this fight, so makes sense to me. My pick is going to be Vyacheslav Borshev to get the job done. Now, guys, let's continue on up the card to a fight that I really have no idea what to think about this one, guys. I have no idea who's going to win this one. We have Quinlan Salkid, a prospect that is very, very hyped up coming to the UFC, and he's taking on the return of Anshul Jubilee. How long has it been since we've seen Anshul Jubilee, man? Because before he got fraud checked over a year ago, okay? I might as well start with Anshul Jubilee. He's a well-rounded fighter. He's pretty good everywhere, but he doesn't shine anywhere. He has nice takedowns. He has good fight IQ. He can remain calm in the octagon. It seems like he has issues, like we were talking about earlier on the card with another fighter, is that when the pace is really put on him, if somebody really brings a dogfight to him, it doesn't seem like he can keep up. I know everybody laughs at him, and I know that he kind of became a meme after the Mike Breeden fight, okay? But in the first 2 rounds of that fight, he completely controlled Mike Breeden. Like, it was looking like he was going to coast his way to a victory, and of course, that didn't end up happening. Now, Quinlan Salkid, on the other hand, is an interesting one because he's being pretty gassed up right now. He's 7-1. He had a good performance on the Contender Series. He's a well-rounded fighter. He does a really, really good job making his opponents think about what he's going to do, mixing things up, and he's really good at punching his way, like technically punching his way into takedowns. On the other hand, he can get a little bit sloppy as the time goes on during the fight, and he can fade just a little bit. To be honest with you guys, I don't know what's going so crazy about this fight, because I know that most people are picking Quillen to get the win over here. I don't get it. I just don't see it. Like, I'm not saying that I don't see his path to victory. I do. I don't think that either guy is really all that. I need to see Quillen come in and have a couple really good performances before I'm like, yeah, you know what? Okay, this good dude seems to be the real deal. I'm not convinced of him yet. Do I want to pick Anshul Jubilee? I don't know. This is another one of those 50-50 fights, and a fight that I'm definitely not going to be betting on myself. Oh, man. I'm going to pick Quillen. Just gun to my head. I don't know. I don't know what to think about this fight, man. That's a toughie, man. I'm just going to sit back again. I'm just going to enjoy this bout. Let's take a look at the odds over here, and you can see exactly. Quillen Salkid is minus 407 right now. I think that's nuts. I think that Anshul Jubilee is an excellent underdog opportunity, but still, for this one, I am not touching it with my money whatsoever. Before we move on to the main card though, guys, let me stop you for just a second. As you guys know, I talk a lot about betting on this channel. If you're interested in hearing exactly where I'm putting my money where my mouth is, every single Thursday or Friday, I upload a members only video and a community members post going through exactly what I am doing with my own money. I like to bet on this sport, and of course, if you either want to support the channel or, again, seeing where I'm putting my money where my mouth is when I talk about these full card breakdowns, again, every Thursday or Friday, if you are interested, you can check out the channel membership in the pinned comment description down below, or right next to the subscribe button. It is very, very cheap compared to other channels, and I would appreciate having you over there. The other thing that I wanted to tell you about is, of course, we use OddsJam on the channel. If you're looking to sign up to OddsJam, you can get a discount using my code and link in the pinned comment description down below using code Clenbat. Thank you very much for listening to everybody. Let's move on to this main card. Let's move on to one of the greatest main cards you guys will ever see, starting off with Jake Matthews taking on Francisco Prado. This is a low-key good fight, though. When I was talking about this fight being sneaky good, like, there's a lot of really good matchups over here, but nothing, like, really worth paying for. You know? Regardless, Jake Matthews. We all know Jake Matthews at this point. It's crazy that he's going to become a veteran in the game soon, kind of like we were talking about Adesanya, right? He's a decent all-around fighter. He doesn't shine anywhere, but he can fight in all aspects of MMA. He's a very, very easy breakdown, Jake Matthews. Francisco Prado, on the other hand, very, very young in his career and building up that experience. He is a powerful striker with huge hands and really nice kicks. He's good in the clinch, has takedowns in his back pocket if that's not working, but his chin is absolutely out there to be clipped. As the fight goes on, he can slow down, and that chin is definitely something that can be cracked. Francisco Prado, while he is a very exciting fighter, while he is a very capable fighter, he has found himself inconsistent coming into the UFC, and I don't necessarily like the Jamie Malarkey loss. The Daniel Zellhuber loss is respectable, plus he did well at the beginning of that fight. But Jake Matthews, on the other hand, sorry if you could hear that, my puppy was just having a bad dream behind me over there. I had to wake her up. Anyways, Jake Matthews, on the other hand, he has struggled to put a win streak together, but he has had good wins over good opponents. Of course, I just highlighted Andre Fialho there, but you know what I mean. We've watched Jake Matthews for a very long time. It seems like the problem with Jake Matthews is he hits a level of opponent that he just can't necessarily get past, but he typically has some pretty good performances. Like, I broke him down, man. Like, he's just a decent fighter. He's a decent fighter. He can fight in all aspects of MMA. He's always out there to win, but he's never really going to be one of those guys, or at this point, like, it seems like he's not going to be one of those guys that really escalates in his career. Francisco Prado, on the other hand, has that potential. I think this is another pretty close fight, in my opinion. I'm kind of leaning like 60-40 over to Jake Matthews. I like the experience. He's taken on guys like Francisco Prado before. Francisco Prado has not taken on somebody at the level of Jake Matthews yet. Well, depending on how you want to look at Daniel Zellhuber, but you get my point. He has potential to win. He can absolutely beat Jake Matthews, but I'm going to give an ever so slight edge to Jake Matthews to get the win here. It's going to be a good fight. I wouldn't be shocked if it went either way, okay? Let's take a look at the odds. Jake Matthews sitting at a minus 212 favorite. Understandable. I won't complain there personally, but my pick is going to be Jake Matthews to get the job done. All right, guys, let's keep going. Let's keep going up the card. We have the return of Jimmy Crute taking on Rodolfo Bellato, man. Rodolfo Bellato, very exciting fighter. I've been watching this guy over in the LFA. I was excited for his UFC debut, and man, was it an interesting one. The ref may have won him that fight, but regardless, he showed that he can scrap. He showed that, and of course, I'm talking about the Ihor Potieria win. The reason I said that is because it was a slugfest, and he got caught eventually, and Ihor was like pounding him to death, and won't go through the entire thing, but regardless, like, the fight should have been stopped. It wasn't, and this dude really proved that he has some insane heart. So let's talk about Rodolfo Bellato for a second. He is a grappler with huge power. His game plan is to walk forward, throw bombs at you, and take your opponents down. He has good takedowns. He has decent takedowns. He has good submissions and good control. On top of that, he can be sucked into a brawl in some of his fights. Sometimes that does work out for him because he has an insane chin and he has an insanely, really, really good heart. Jimmy Crute, on the other hand, not too much to break down about Jimmy Crute. He's a good wrestler and grappler. Decent power on the feet. Not a ton of technique. Jimmy Crute has been through a little bit of a rough go in those last little while. Losing to Anthony Smith. Oh boy. Oh boy. That on your record just doesn't really show nothing too great. Jamal Hill wins the loss is not looking so good in hindsight, man. But I think Jamal Hill's still a very capable fighter. And Alonzo Menefield, depending on how you want to look at that, man. Like, Jimmy Crute's been through a little bit of a rough patch lately. And he's been off. I don't know how his injury's been doing or if he got that completely cleared up. If I had to guess, that's because that's why he's taken so long off, because he was still having problems with his injury, but I can't say for sure. I haven't really been following Jimmy Crute. Regardless, guys, I am going to pick Rodolfo Bellato to get the win. I think he's just going to come in. I think he's going to be tougher. I think he's going to be a little bit better technically, and I know that Jimmy Crute will probably want to take the fight down to the ground. I just feel like the Rodolfo Bellato will be better even if that's the case. And if he wants to slug it out, I think he'll be able to beat Jimmy Crute. Rodolfo Bellato is a fairly confident pick of mine. I like him in this matchup. I like him in this matchup against Jimmy Crute. Jimmy Crute is, unfortunately, I can't see him winning this fight, man. But on the other side of the coin, Rodolfo Bellato isn't like anything like crazy to write home about, right? And let's take a look at Odds Jam over here. Rodolfo Bellato sitting at minus 145 right now. Makes sense. Makes sense. I'd put him a little bit more than that, so perhaps there's some value over there, but I don't know what I'm going to bet on in this fight, guys, or excuse me, on this card. It's a very interesting card, very tough card. There's some spots, though. There's always some spots. All right, guys, let's move on to the greatest featured fight you have ever seen on a card, that being Thaleson Teixeira taking on a Justin Tafa. It's unfortunate to see, sorry if you could hear my notification over here. Okay, Pro Art, thank you very much. Let's sorry. It's kind of sad to see the state of the Tafa brothers, man, because they have lost all of the hype in the world, man. Let's talk about Justin Tafa. There's not a ton to break down with him. He's a huge heavyweight, good power, good chin. Sometimes he has good kicks. He can be taken down. He's 7-4. Nothing about him screams like, oh my God, look out for this guy. He hasn't even beat anybody like really notable, right? He fought Carl Williams, got out wrestled. Thaleson Teixeira, on the other hand, he hasn't fought anybody of significance either, but he does seem to be a better fighter in general. I've seen him a couple times in the LFA, and then he, of course, got into the UFC after his win against Arthur Lopez. Now, he is a 3-time national BJJ champion. Not so great for Tafa. He's a well-rounded fighter. He's primarily a grappler with huge hands. He's one of those guys that seems to fall in love with his power, although he is so good at BJJ. You can find this guy just choosing to strike at points. The striking is just okay. He has good power, but unfortunately he can get caught up in a slugfest. He'll be happy to trade, and he'll be happy to look for a finish. At times, he also can be caught with his hands really low. So Teixeira has a couple tells or a couple habits that is a recipe for Justin Tafa to end up chinning him. So that potential is absolutely there. And people were hyping up Thaleson Teixeira coming into the Contender Series. I don't think that he is just that guy. I just think it's because the heavyweights suck and he's taking on some heavyweights that haven't necessarily looked good. He might have a great performance against Justin Tafa, and that still won't really say anything to me. It's just the issue with the heavyweight division. This is a tough fight to call because I believe Thaleson Teixeira is a better fighter, and I believe he should win this fight most times, but his chin is out there to be hit. Who knows if he's going to come in and slugfest? Is he not going to want to take the fight to the ground? Justin Tafa has all the capabilities in the world to chin Teixeira. Okay? If that does not happen, I think that Thaleson Teixeira is going to win this fight the vast majority of the times. I'm going to pick Thaleson Teixeira. It's more likely that he does not get caught and he can do whatever he wants to Justin Tafa, but it's a very, very difficult one to call for that reason. I'm going to pick Thaleson Teixeira to get the job done. Let's take a look at the odds, and Teixeira is sitting at a slight favorite. Understandably so. Again, you can never count out Justin Tafa. He's like a Mark Hunt kind of fighter. He can always chin you. He's always live. He's like I can see this fight looking like a Curtis Blades, Derek Lewis type thing, where it's like Thaleson Teixeira kind of doing whatever he wants, and then boom, he's out. Something like that. My pick is going to be Teixeira, though. By the way, guys, before we talk about the co-main and the main event, if you have not liked the video and you've watched the video so far, I would appreciate if you dropped a like, comment down below, help out the algorithm. Also, we don't just make MMA content. In the description down below, you can find the link tree or actual links. We make gaming videos, we make movie and TV review videos, we make variety commentary content. You can check out any one of those channels. I would love to have you over there. With that being said, thank you for listening, by the way. Let's get into the last 2 fights over here. All right, guys, let's move on to the co-main event. We have Weili Zhang taking on Tatiana Suarez. Weili Zhang. We all know Weili Zhang. We all love Weili Zhang at this point. She's a very complete fighter. She has technique in all aspects of MMA. Great striking, great wrestling, BJJ, cardio, and all the heart in the world. She is, in my opinion, one of, if not the greatest female fighter of all time. She's coming off of the UFC 300 win against Yang Xiaonan, which we've actually seen Weili Zhang have some problems, okay? She had issues with the striking early on, but then she dominated as usual. If anything, she showed that she still has some incredible heart, okay? Here's the other thing. She arguably finished Yan twice in that fight. Regardless, Tatiana Suarez, on the other hand, she is a very good technical wrestler. She's one of those WMMA fighters who actually, backs up the credentials that she has. She has the wrestling credentials. She can actually act upon those credentials. How many times have you seen a WMMA fighter come in and just be like, oh, it's this person, you got to watch out, the best BJJ fighter ever. Oh my God, the national striking champion from over here, and then they just show up and they're garbage. Tatiana Suarez actually has incredible wrestling, okay? Her striking, on the other hand, could use some work, to be honest with you. She's a bit open when she's on the feet, but other than that, she has great takedowns, she has great control, she has great submissions, and she has had a clear path to victory so far. And she's done it against, the only real good win over here is Jessica Andrade. I know you can point back to Alexa Grasso, but I don't know, man. I don't look at that and go, woo, awesome. I don't know what to say, guys, here. Weili is just a better fighter. If Tatiana Suarez can take down Weili Zhang and control her, then she might be able to get the win, but I have no reason to believe that she will be able to do that because Weili is an incredible wrestler herself. Weili has everything. She is an incredibly complete fighter in all aspects of MMA. Tatiana Suarez has the wrestling. She'll get pieced up on the feet. If she can't take Weili down, then it's going to be a very, very long night for her. And even if she takes Weili down, I think that Weili has the heart and cardio technique in order to not get submitted and get the job done. We have seen Weili lose before. It's always possible, and Weili Zhang is due for an upset. I just don't think it's going to be yet, though. Weili Zhang's aging, so that's something to take into consideration, but I think she's going to get the job done. How can I pick against her? From everything I've seen with Weili Zhang, I'm just not going to pick against her. Tatiana Suarez, on the other hand, we'll see. Weili Zhang's going to be the pick. I love watching Weili Zhang fight, and I cannot wait to see her perform. And the odds are actually kind of close. Weili Zhang is sitting at minus 141 right now. A lot of people are hyped up about Tatiana Suarez. I'm just going to roll with the champion who has been absolutely destroying everybody in her way in Weili Zhang. Now, guys, let's continue on over to the main event. We have Dricus du Plessis taking on Sean Strickland. All right, here, this is a toughie, man. This is a big toughie. You have Dricus du Plessis, who somehow ends up getting the win no matter what. And he showed that again against Israel Adesanya. I think the most important thing to talk about is, if you guys have been watching a channel for a long time, there was a long period of time where I have not watched their first fight. And the first time that I watched it live, I was like, well, that was a close fight. Could have gone either way. A couple of those rounds were really close. Since then, I would say in the past month or two, I have recently rewatched the fight, and I actually did think that Sean Strickland edged it out. Even then, though, I didn't think oh my God, what an insane robbery. If I was judging, I would have gave it to Sean Strickland, but I'm still not going to complain about the Dricus du Plessis win the first time around, okay? It was a very close fight. It was a very brutal fight. It was a good one, too. Another thing that I kind of have I don't want to say conspiracy theory about this fight is Sean got his eye cut really, really early, and I think that played into his performance big time. I really do. But the only other thing to note about the fight is Dricus du Plessis was having massive issues with Sean's jab at the beginning of the fight, but he ended up making it a little bit more chaotic in the later rounds, and that's when it ended up getting close. I actually think that fight would have been differently if Sean Strickland did not get cut. Regardless, we have seen both of these guys one time since their last fight. Sean Strickland getting the boring win against Paulo Costa. Not a ton happened. He walked forward, he jabbed, he teeped in Dricus du Plessis. He got the win over Israel Adesanya, which was an incredible performance. It was back and forth, and somehow he just got it done again. Sloppy as usual, but he did it. He keeps his power and strength through 5 rounds, which is nuts, and he ended up beating Israel Adesanya. It's insane to me, man. But anyways, I haven't actually dove down to their style, okay? Dricus du Plessis, he's a well-rounded fighter with big power, really good strength. He's very wild, he's very unorthodox, but he makes it work. He has good success when he is pressuring and blitzing. Somehow, though, this is what I always find hilarious about DDP, he just throws that fatigue aside, and somehow he keeps his power through 5 rounds. He fights through it, and it's evident. The dude is like... and somehow he keeps that power throughout 5 rounds. It is insane to me. Sean Strickland, on the other hand, he's a boxer with really, really good cardio. He walks forward constantly with his hands up. He throws jabs, and he throws teeps. Recently, I feel like he's been spamming more teeps than usual, which has been working out for him. But guys, like, it's such a tough fight because it's the same breakdown with DDP all the time. You have a guy who is a better technical fighter than DDP, but DDP just walks his way into a victory. And I've said, man, after the Israel Adesanya fight that I'm done doubting DDP. I'm done doubting him. If he moves up to light heavyweight and takes on Alex Pereira, then we can talk, okay? I don't think he's going to beat Sean Strickland again. I think Dricus du Plessis will just make it look weird and find some takedowns maybe. And plus, we know that Sean Strickland is worried about the takedown too after watching what Israel Adesanya did. We made a whole video talking about that. Dricus du Plessis is probably going to take him down. Dricus du Plessis is probably going to be in Sean Strickland's head. I can't wait to watch a press conference. I'm done just doubting him, man. I'm convinced that DDP's the real deal. I'm convinced that DDP, no matter who's against him, he can make it look wild and funky and just make people fall over, okay? I'm picking Dricus du Plessis to get the win. I would also really like to see Dricus du Plessis win because I'm a fan of him. I like Dricus du Plessis a lot. I love the personal trash talk. It's really funny, man. But I am going to pick DDP to get the win. It is a medium confidence pick over here. I'm just not doubting him anymore. You can see Dricus du Plessis is sitting at a minus 203 favorite with some props right now. Over 3.5 is minus 200. I can see that being the case. Yeah, like, is Sean Strickland really going to finish the fight? The question is, can DDP submit Sean Strickland? I don't really think so. Regardless, I'm going to pick Dricus du Plessis. This is a sneaky, sneaky good card. Again, it's just unfortunate that it's a pay-per-view and it's not really worth paying for. But guys, let me know what you think about all of the fights down below. Thank you very much for being here and watching. Why don't you check out this video on screen right now? YouTube thinks that you will like it the best, and I would love to have you over there, guys. Thank you for watching. Take care.